Yesterday, this article dropped quoting a Disney executive, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. Not a lot of people were talking about this. I was kind of shocked by that because this is a big deal, at least to me. You have a Disney executive coming out and blaming fans for their movie's failures because they can't recognize the greatness that is Disney. What a perfect time for this person to come out and say these things, too, as we get closer and closer to the shareholder voting proxy that's coming soon, where they have an opportunity to replace several people that sit on Disney's board. Boy, oh boy, what a great time to come out and blast patrons. So this was a big thing that dropped, and I'm really kind of surprised nobody's talking about it. It came from this person's blog. This guy requoted it and said, "I love this from Matt Baloney's newsletter. Disney cannot fail. It can only be failed by the mouth-breathing bigots who refuse to acknowledge the greatness of their films." And if you want to pause that and read it, go ahead and you can take a look at it. Well, it's pretty telling. This all comes at a time where Marvel, Star Wars, Disney, they're all in a bad place. This dropped today from the Hollywood Reporter, this big damage control piece, how Marvel is quietly retooling amidst superhero fatigue, still going with the superhero fatigue thing, which we all know, well, those of us that are paying attention know is bullshit. It's not superhero fatigue. It's more like bad movie fatigue. They haven't put anything good out, at least on the Marvel side of things, since Endgame. And Endgame, to be honest, really wasn't that good, in my opinion, when you compare it to what came before it. That's where you started to see the cracks, especially in scenes where you had the little female empowerment moment, which made no sense. Like all the girls on the battlefield stopped fighting so they could run defense for the gauntlet. It's like, what are you doing? But little did we know at the time where they were going with that. What I find funny about this whole piece, big, long hit piece, well, not hit piece, but big, long damage control piece about how they're not going to give up and they're going to retool. There's a couple things in here I find funny, like this quote right here, talking about the Fantastic Four movie, which, by the way, apparently this script was so bad, nobody wanted to play Reed Richards. I know Pedro Pascal has the role, and some people are excited for that. I think he's a little too old for the part, and I'll explain why. But this movie, apparently, from what we know, stars Invisible Woman. She's going to be the leader of the team now, which is fucking stupid. Okay, Reed Richards is the leader of the Fantastic Four, but not in the modern MCU, so they had to find a way to make that work, so they bring in this guy to apparently polish the script to somehow make that work. The only way you can make that work, in my opinion, is if Reed Richards leaves or dies or becomes a bad guy, which I think is going to happen. I think he's going to become the Maker. A lot of people probably don't even know who that is because most people that watch these things don't even read the comics, which, you know, I don't fault people for not reading them and just watching the stuff because, well, modern comics are shit. I do encourage everybody to go read back issues, though. Those are good. But my theory has been Reed Richards is going to become a bad guy, like the ultimate Fantastic Four version, and they're going to slide in possibly a reserve Fantastic Four member. And you know who's a reserve member? She-Hulk. Letting you do something with that character. I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's all speculation. But as someone who's read a lot of this stuff and knows how they work, it makes sense to me. I think that's what they're going to do. And I think that's why a lot of people didn't want to do that role, because there's going to be a lot of heat for that. So I think a lot of people just didn't want any part of it. They just didn't want any part of it. And Pedro Pascal, he doesn't really care. So he came in and took it. He was not their first choice for the role. I'm just saying, he's 48 years old. These are projects that you want to stretch out well over a decade. So you're going to have somebody in their 60s playing Reed Richards? I mean, come on. I guess if you deep fake his face is going to change quite a bit when he hits 60-something years old. It would have been better off to get somebody early 30s to play the role. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see. But what I love here is the stakes for that movie are high. Oh, and they are very high. Fantastic Four, if that movie bombs, that's going to be trouble. Because they need these characters now more than ever. Because the studio is searching for characters and actors who can carry its universe forward after the exits of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Oh, guess what? You didn't have to kill them. You could have kept them. You could have let them exit and recast. Instead, they have now set the standard. So every time someone leaves a role now or passes away or something, they're going to recast the role. They might not do it with villains, or they might be willing to do it with villains, but they haven't really done it with heroes yet. And it's a bad standard to set. I know some people have been recast. Absolutely. Thunderbolt Ross has been recast. Jonathan Majors Kang is going to get recast. But that's not the standard. The standard is when big characters die or leave, they rest the characters now. They did it with Black Panther. They did it with Captain America. And they did it with Iron Man. And I know people will say, well, Captain America 4 is still coming. We'll see how that works out. We'll see how that works out. They should have just recast Steve Rogers is what they should have done. And then you would have had your big leaders, and they still would have been there. But you decided to make a creative mess that you're now trying to clean up because of people like Jonathan Majors and so on and so on. Like, they're in such a bad place. They're in such a bad place. They have a lot riding on Deadpool and Wolverine, more than I think people realize. Because if that movie doesn't do well, that's going to be, that's the end of the line. That movie has to do well. And I think it will. But it'll be crazy if that movie fails. That really would signal the end of the line. A lot riding on that. A lot riding on X-Men in 97. X-Men 97 now. That movie, that show they need to do well because they want to revive the X-Men too. That's the next thing that's going to get revived. So, we'll see what happens. They're in a crazy place right now. This article talks about how they're going to try to make people miss Marvel just a little bit by releasing maybe 2 movies next year. That's it. Would be Captain America 4 and maybe Blade, but Blade might move to 2025. So they have Captain America 4 with no Chris Evans. And I don't know what else. Oh, we also have Agatha coming out this year. Expect that show to fall off a cliff as well. I think the only thing that might do okay is X-Men 97. We'll see if that show's even any good. I have no faith in that show at all. I've went over a million reasons why I have no faith in it, but I think that the people behind it just won't be able to help themselves. They're bringing back The Boys, apparently. Bob Iger bringing back The Boys, says Disney exec. This is the same executive that was calling fans bigots and saying that they are sexist and they endorse regressive gendered stereotypes and all this shit. And they're mad that Bob Iger is trying to pivot back to what, comic book fans and a male skewing audience wants, which is, big buff dudes taking care of business and maybe a female character that helps them out. I mean, there's a reason that the Avengers did good. What did they have? They had Scarlett Johansson looking sexy as hell, and everyone loved her. And then they decided that, well, let's bring in Brie Larson and her back and legs with no butt, and we'll see how that does. Well, we know how that does now, don't we? Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. Also, if you would, please like, subscribe, share the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Hit that notification bell. Check out my Rumble and Locals, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace. Make sure to check out my Locals. There's a link in the description
It's a fun community that I'm trying to build over here. If you don't want to support me on YouTube, you can come over here. None of that money goes to YouTube. You also can just come over here for free. But if you are a supporter over here, I do plan on doing an extra live stream once a month and throwing links to the supporters so you can actually come on and have a supporter live stream with me. Also, it's a good place to catch all of my content. You don't have to worry about notifications like YouTube. They'll definitely work over here. So come check out my locals.